Everything you have ever known happened here. Every ocean, every forest, every creature that has ever lived, every human who has ever drawn breath, all of it on this one small planet. But there was a time when none of it existed. A time before the dinosaurs, before the first fish, before the first blade of grass, the first insect, the first living cell of any kind. If you could travel back to that time and stand on the surface of the Earth, you would not recognize the planet beneath your feet. You would not even recognize it as Earth. You would think you had landed on another world entirely, a world of fire and poison and violence on a scale almost impossible to imagine. This is the story of the first billion years, the lost, hellish infancy of our planet, and the truth of how a world this hostile became a world where life could begin. Our story starts around 4.5 billion years ago, a number so vast it barely means anything to the human mind. To put it in perspective, if you compress the entire history of the Earth into a single 24-hour day, everything you learn about in history class, every civilization, every war, all of human existence, would fit into the last fraction of a second before midnight. Back at the very beginning of that day, there was no Earth at all, only a vast, spinning disk of gas and dust orbiting a young sun. Over millions of years, gravity pulled that dust together. Grains stuck to grains. Pebbles became boulders. Boulders slammed into one another and merged. And slowly, violently, out of that chaos, a planet began to grow. But this newborn Earth was not the blue and green world we know. It was a glowing ball of molten rock. The energy of all those endless collisions, combined with heat from radioactive elements deep inside, kept the entire surface melted. Picture an ocean, but not of water, an ocean of liquid rock, glowing orange and red, stretching from horizon to horizon, churning and bubbling under a black, starless sky. And then, into this hellish scene, came the single most violent event in the history of our planet. Around 4.5 billion years ago, another world was moving through the young solar system, a planet roughly the size of Mars. Scientists have given it a name, Theia. And Theia was on a collision course with the Earth. When it struck, it was not a glancing blow. It was an apocalyptic, world-shattering impact, a collision between two planets. The energy released was beyond comprehension. A huge portion of the Earth was blasted apart and thrown into space, along with the shattered remains of Theia itself. The surface of our planet was vaporized and melted all over again. But out of that unimaginable destruction came something beautiful. The debris thrown into space, the mingled remains of Earth and Theia, began to orbit the wounded planet. And over time, gravity pulled it together into a single glowing sphere. That sphere became the moon. The moon in our sky tonight was born from the greatest catastrophe our planet ever endured. It is, in a sense, a piece of the early Earth, still circling us billions of years later. And here is something that would have made that early sky truly alien. When the moon first formed, it was not the small, distant disk we see today. It was enormous, orbiting far, far closer to the Earth. If you had stood on the surface and looked up, the moon would have loomed overhead, vastly larger than anything we ever see now. The Earth was spinning far faster back then too. A single day, one full rotation, lasted only around 5 or 6 hours. The sun would have raced across the sky, the giant moon wheeling behind it, day and night flickering past in a rhythm no living thing has ever experienced. So this is our planet in its infancy, a surface of molten and cooling rock, a monstrous moon overhead, days just a few hours long, and an atmosphere that would have killed you in an instant, because there was no oxygen in it at all. None. The air was a thick, toxic haze of carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and volcanic gases, belched out by countless eruptions across the burning surface. This is the world scientists named the Hadean, after Hades, the ancient Greek underworld. A name chosen to capture exactly what they believed this time was like, hell on Earth. And for a long time, that was the whole picture. A planet of endless fire, bombarded by asteroids, drowning in lava, utterly incapable of supporting anything. But recently, science has uncovered a shocking twist, and it turns much of that story on its head, because it turns out we may have been wrong about the young Earth. The problem scientists faced was simple. Almost no rocks survive from that ancient time. The restless Earth has recycled its own crust again and again over billions of years, erasing the evidence. For a long time, we had almost nothing to go on but imagination. And then, in the hills of Western Australia, researchers found something extraordinary. Tiny crystals, grains of a mineral called zircon, so tough that they had survived for billions of years. When scientists measured their age, the result was staggering. The oldest of these crystals formed around 4.4 billion years ago. They are the oldest known pieces of the Earth ever found, tiny time capsules from the planet's very infancy. And locked inside those crystals was a chemical signature that no one expected, a signature that only forms in the presence of one thing: liquid water. Think about what that means. We had imagined the young Earth as an endless ocean of lava, but these crystals suggest that, far earlier than anyone believed, perhaps by 4.4 billion years ago, the planet had already cooled enough for liquid water to exist on its surface. For oceans, perhaps, and a sky with rain. The cool early Earth, some scientists now call it, not a permanent hellscape, but a world that calmed down and became watery far faster than we ever thought. As the volcanoes poured out gases, water vapor rose into the sky, formed clouds, and fell as rain. Rain that may have lasted for ages, slowly filling the first oceans of the world. There is even a deeper mystery here. Back then, the sun itself was different, noticeably fainter than it is today, perhaps 20 to 30% dimmer. By all rights, a planet under such a weak sun should have frozen solid, and yet the evidence says the early Earth had liquid water anyway. How? The thick blanket of volcanic gases in the atmosphere likely trapped enough heat to keep the young world warm, a natural greenhouse holding back the cold of a dim young sun. Scientists call it the faint young sun paradox, and they are still working to fully solve it. So the picture has transformed, not simply an eternal inferno, but a young, restless world of volcanoes and steaming oceans, of a giant moon and racing days, of poison skies and warm, dark seas. Still utterly alien, still deadly to anything like us, but no longer just a lifeless hell. And that changes everything, because it means the stage for life may have been set astonishingly early. We do not know exactly when or exactly how the first living thing appeared. It is one of the greatest unanswered questions in all of science. But somewhere in those early oceans, perhaps in warm pools, perhaps in the crushing dark around volcanic vents on the seafloor, where hot, mineral-rich water gushed up from within the Earth, the ingredients came together. Simple chemistry became something more. Molecules learned to copy themselves. And at some point, on this violent young planet, the line was crossed between the non-living and the living. The oldest solid traces we have of life are structures called stromatolites, layered mounds built by vast colonies of microscopic organisms. Some of the most ancient examples, again found in Australia, date back around 3.5 billion years. And remarkably, you can still see living stromatolites being built by microbes today, in a few quiet corners of the world, living echoes of the very first life on Earth. Think about the journey, from a collision between two planets, from an ocean of molten rock, from a sky of poison and a moon that filled the heavens. From all of that violence and fire came warm oceans, and in those oceans, the first faint spark of life, the ancestor of everything that would ever live, including us, everything that came after, the strange creatures of the ancient seas, the first fish, the dinosaurs, the rise of mammals, and finally human beings looking up at that same moon and wondering where they came from. All of it began here, on a world we would not recognize, in the hostile, fiery, misunderstood infancy of our planet. The earth beneath your feet was once a ball of fire. The moon in your sky was once a wound. And the water in the oceans, in the rain, in your own body has been here almost since the beginning, cycling through this planet for billions of years. We tend to think of Earth as something permanent, something that was always here, always green and blue and alive. But it was not. It had to be born. It had to survive its own violent childhood. And against everything, it became the one place in all the known universe where life took hold. That is the real story written in the oldest crystals on Earth. Not just a tale of fire and destruction, but of a dead world that somehow came to life.